Welcome back. In our Melbourne studio is Josh Frydenberg, a young Liberal member of the Parliament destined for a big future. And on my left in the studio here is Ed Husic.
G'day.
Who is a member in Sydney's Western Suburbs, covers the Rooty Hill RSL, which has got so much fame in recent times. So I welcome you, Ed, and Josh. Now, Ed, I remember taking you to lunch last year, February of last year, when I was supporting Gillard. I talked to you about it, and I was telling you you're doing the wrong thing, that you were supporting Rudd.
Did you pick up the bill or did I?
I did. I paid, naturally. Silly question.
I just hope one of us paid, that's
Silly
all.
question. I always pay. But I wanted to ask you, you said to me then you would not go willingly to your grave. They were your words, so I do remember it. Are you now satisfied that you were right?
I wait and see until the election, but I'm feeling like I don't have to chisel anything on any stone yet.
Now, I do want to ask you, because in Western Sydney, obviously Labor had a great problem. I know I'd seen some of Labor's research with swings of 12 and 14% in some seats, which would have knocked you off. I think you're about 12 and a bit, aren't you, or something like that in that range?
12.3.
12, yeah, 12.3. So is it any better now?
The reaction on the ground is completely different. I've said this to people. My concern was I had too many conversations start. I'm a Labor voter, but, and that made it very, very tough. But now we're in a position where it's a lot more competitive. I think it's very unwise to be popping champagne corks simply because I think we've still got a bit to travel. But it's much better to campaign in an environment, as I've said previously, where you're campaigning with a lot more confidence than campaigning with despair.
Okay, Josh, can I ask you, I mean, obviously there's been a big change because Labor's primary vote has jumped something like 9 points as an average across the polls. It's a massive jump in a short time, isn't it?
Yeah, sure it is. But Graham, it was always going to be a very close election. I mean, I think you have to go back to the Great Depression to find an election where the Labor Party's primary vote at the federal level was below 37%. So they were always going to come off the floor of 30% for their primary vote. We know that, and it's still got a long way to go. But, Kevin Rudd Mark II is the same as Kevin Rudd Mark I. There's still the same chaos on the borders. The budget's not looking any healthier. And you've got also a divided party behind him. Let the fact that, 7 cabinet ministers have decided to walk. So it's not a united front on the Labor side. There is no narrative to Kevin Rudd's story. There's lots of travel, PNG, Indonesia, Afghanistan, a couple of photos of him, of himself having cut himself shaving and all that sort of thing. But, there's no fundamental change to the issues that matter for the Australian electorate, namely the state of the economy and what it can be delivered for the Australian people.
Yeah, see, I don't follow it myself. I don't understand it. But no matter what you and I might think, they actually like Rudd out there. That's pretty obvious now, isn't it?
Well, it was off the base of where Julia Gillard was, and clearly she wasn't liked, and so I think there's a bit of a relief out there in the electorate. But, Kevin Rudd's more celebrity, Graham, than leader. There's no doubt about that, whereas Tony Abbott is more leader than celebrity. He doesn't go and tweet photos of himself all the time.
If that keeps you warm at night.
Hang on, let Josh finish.
It's the truth. It's the truth. I mean, Tony Abbott doesn't go and promote himself in the way that Kevin Rudd does, and Kevin Rudd wants to run as the anti-Labor candidate. He wants to distance himself from New South Wales Labor, distance himself from his own record and Julia Gillard's record. The reality is he can't, and we'll hold him to account for that.
So I'm getting a different reaction. Without doubt, I've called it straight, and I don't say the sky's green when it's blue. We had problems obviously on our side. I've spoken about those. But what I also detected from the thousands of homes we've door knocked and people that I've spoken to is that Tony Abbott's got a problem. And Tony Abbott is seen as too negative. But what I'm also picking up, Graham, is that people see him as a flip-flopper. He makes a decision one day and changes. He makes a decision on electoral reform, puts it in writing, changes, makes a decision on local government constitution.
What about Kevin Rudd on boats?
And he changes.
Don't lurch to the right.
No.
This isn't a lurch. This is a massive leap.
But this is. I'm letting you know what people are saying to me now. And one woman on the weekend who wasn't necessarily enamoured with us when I said, "Oh, you're going to tell me all these great things about Tony." She said, "No." She says, "I don't like him either." So he has got problems, and part of the reason why I believe that their vote is the way it is because of his unpopularity. They know it, they don't say it, and I'm not going to sit here listening to Josh run the lines of the day.
Well, I'm not sure that they're just the lines of the day, but this idea that Kevin Rudd is all celebrity, I mean, we've all heard it before. But I think I wrote in the Australian on Friday, Josh, that the Papua New Guinea solution was cruel, heartless, risky and politically brilliant. What do you think of it?
Well, I think it's got more holes in it than Swiss cheese. I mean, you know, think of the primary issue here, capacity in Manus Island. Currently 300 to 400 people. In the first week alone, 1,200 people arrived. So, you know, you put in the army, you send resources over there, and by January you may get capacity for 500 or 600, and then, you know, you won't even be able to fill the quota from the first week that came under Kevin Rudd's policy.
Yeah, but the way
there's a lot of domestic opposition in Papua New Guinea as well. So
Josh,
I actually don't think. Yeah, I don't think people believe it will be delivered.
But the way I hear it, and I got this message pretty strongly not long before I came on air, there will be announcements on the next few days that will leave everyone in no doubt about capacity and intent. Now, if they do something really big on that front, what do you say then? You see, I think the danger has always been for Tony Abbott and yourself is, what if this works?
Well, I just can't see it working, but you're asking me to project a situation after the election campaign. This is just a quick political fix. And, you know, Graham, you're fully aware of the numbers here. You know, a decade ago, in 2003, there was one boat to Australia with 53 people in that whole year. Wind the clock forward a decade, in just the 7 months of this year, there's been more than 16,000 arrivals on more than 620 boats. That's the reality of the situation. We had a policy that worked under John Howard. Tony Abbott wants to go back to that, and you know, we're trying to believe here that Kevin Rudd can try to fix a very difficult issue overnight. He can't.
It's pretty clear that a lot of people believe he can. I mean, I note that poll on Sunday suggesting that he's better able to deal with the boats than Tony Abbott, which I found amazing, but nonetheless it was there in black and white, wasn't it?
Well, look, every day this policy is unravelling before the voters' eyes, so I actually think those polls will change. Look, the boats still continue to come. We don't have a legally binding commitment from Papua New Guinea to take all these people, and you've got a real capacity issue. So I just don't think this is a long-term solution, let alone a short-term one.
Ed, what's your response to that?
The feedback I've got certainly from my neck of the woods is that people are very supportive of what we're doing and believe that we do need to take measures to stop arrivals. And certainly the other side, what they're doing is talking this down, because from their perspective, their political interests matter more to them than seeing actually some sort of meaningful headway on this. And I mentioned earlier about Tony Abbott flip-flopping. We've also got Scott Morrison doing the same thing. Start of June, he was saying, he said very definitively, we will stop the boats. And when he was asked how long, he said, we will do it in our first term. 2 days ago, when he was asked about how long it would take, he said, well, we're looking to have this policy over the course of the 5 years, and this is how long it's going to take. It'll be done over that period of time. They never had asterisks at the end of their campaign material at the last election saying, we will stop the boats, asterisks, in 5 years. It was always definitive. Now, they can either ensure the success of this by not sending out mixed signals to people smugglers, and they can also be fair dinkum about their policy. I mean, their only response has been that they've talked about a 3-star general and got a trip paid for him by toll to go over to Nauru and put more tents up. I mean, that's effectively their policy.
Well, I've got to say, I'm not going to be critical of the trip by toll. I'm sorry, as far as I'm concerned when it comes to that, it's so bloody hard to get to Nauru if you can get a lift and you declare it. And Scott Morrison's done that.
Yeah, after pressure to do so.
It's like I was critical of Tony Abbott and Joe Hockey earlier on for bagging some of your colleagues over Radio Beat. I just think the toll thing is being overblown. But Josh, can I just say this to you? If you were going to stop the boats all that quickly, why would you need to build 5,000 person tent city on Nauru? And in any event, isn't this just saying, well, my tent city's bigger than your tent city?
No, it's not. I mean, offshore processing is one element of our policy, and let's not forget that Kevin Rudd said that offshore processing was a stain on the soul of the nation, and now he's the one who's going off to PNG trying to set up these camps in Manus Island. So, you know, if anyone's a flip-flopper on this issue, it's certainly Kevin Rudd, the man who unravelled John Howard's policy. Look, offshore processing, temporary protection visas, they're absolutely critical in the puzzle here, because you cannot offer people permanent residency in Australia with those temporary protection visas in place, and then turning back the boats when it's safe to do so. And we've heard from both the Indonesian Defence Minister and the Indonesian Foreign Minister that they're prepared to speak to Australia about this. So, you know, if I think that we've got a three-pronged policy. I think it's worked in the past. I think it will work in again.
You've had two.
And you,
All right, can I...
you know, and Kevin Rudd's just trying for a last-minute fix.
You've had two. You've had both immigration officials say that the policy that they've used in the past won't work now because times have changed. They've had defence officials say that what they're proposing won't work, shouldn't work, is dangerous. And on those two scores, they've ignored the expert advice, and they still persist with trying to go back to the past. And really, you've got to move with the times and do something different.
All right, can we just move on? I've only got a minute to go, so it's going to be very quick.
You want this to be quick between Frydenberg and I?
I do. But both sides know that there's going to be large chunks of expenditure cut from the budget, if not, excuse me, more revenue raised. Now, last week, Chris Bowen announced the car decision. How'd that go down in Rooty Hill?
I have not had people rushing up to me. I've had one constituent raise it with me that's been concerned, but you know, what we're trying to do is make sure that people are fair income about their business versus personal use of their car, because not too many people get cars out my way provided by an employer.
Well, Josh, can I just ask you, I've only got a few seconds.
Sure.
If you can get $3 billion doing this, why wouldn't you take it?
Well, this is a disaster of a policy. There was no consultation with the industry. A third of the cars are made in Australia, so this is a kick in the guts to Holden and to Toyota and to Ford at a time when they're really doing it tough. I mean, thousands of jobs depend on the car industry, and the government, without any consultation, without any warning, has kicked the guts out of the car industry, and it goes against the Henry Tax Review's own recommendation about a statutory rate of 20%. So, you know, I think this was the Kevin Rudd of old, no consultation, a knee-jerk policy reaction that is going to have a lot of negative consequences.
Never has so much rested on a logbook.
Ed is just chafing at the bit here, but look, I've got to stop it there. Might I say to the two of you, it's a much better debate than sometimes what I have with ministers on here, shadow ministers. So we'll definitely get you two again. Thank you very much for your time.
Good on you. Thanks.
We'll be back in
Thanks,
just a
Richo.
moment with
Thanks,
Greg
Ed.
Sheridan.